Good morning, everyone. My name is Kip Cox. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Director of Academic Services in the Graduate School.
Great, thank you. And I'm Jen Walsh. I'm in the Office of Undergraduate Advising. I use she, her, hers pronouns. We are teaming up today to give you a little presentation on what you can expect, or maybe what you've already expected or experienced as students here in the United States with regard to academic culture and some tips that we have for you in the process. We'll go ahead and get started.
So we're going to cover several topics, experiences in the classroom, which can vary depending upon if you're in labs or in discussion sections or in a small seminar of 8 people or a classroom of 400 people. So experiences can quite vary depending upon what kind of classes you're in. Some classroom etiquette things, how to properly deport yourself and expectations around that. Some tips on studying, the academic survival type things. And then we'll also take questions at the end.
And if you have questions along the way, we're happy to see those in the chat as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for a moment, you can either reflect in the chat, or if you want to speak out loud or raise your hand, it's up to you. What have you noticed so far about learning in the US? What's been different for you coming to the United States and learning here? I'll give you a moment to think about that. I know it says here to have a partner, but we're not going to do partners today. We'll just kind of type something in the chat. What's been different? There's more discussion. Yeah. Sometimes we expect more of our students in terms of participation, just like we are right now, right? Other things that stand out to you? Well, I think you'll notice, and if you haven't already noticed, there are a lot of things that probably are different from your home country, and learning there versus learning here. A lot of it is cultural differences, which we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to bounce to the next slide here.
So there's different class formats that we have on campus. There's, obviously the lecture formats, which I've alluded to already, where you could be in like hundreds of other students. You're just potentially just a number on a roster. Then there are labs, where you're doing research or sometimes even working as a job in a lab if you're a graduate student. But labs can be very, very interesting places, a lot of fun, but also there's a lot of regulations and things like that and policies within labs. So there's that format. And then there's discussion sections with other students in a small format where you get to share things. And it's important sometimes to speak up during those, because sometimes you're graded on participation, which may not always seem fair, but it is good to at least even ask questions during discussion if you don't really have anything to share, just to show that you're engaged in the instruction and in the exercise.
Yeah, so as someone mentioned in the chat, discussion is valued here in the United States, and having those small group experiences, either with a TA or with an instructor, those are experiences that are helpful. Can y'all hear me still?
I can.
Oh, okay. My headphones just something strange. Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next slide. So office hours, you may have heard about office hours. That's something that your instructors and your TAs, I think, are required to have actually as part of their syllabus. So office hours are really, Kip and I joke that they should be called student hours, not office hours. It's a time where an instructor or professor is in their office or on Zoom, as some are too. And they're open and available to students to talk about any of these things you see on the screen here. So issues you might be having in class with the course material or any of that. Things outside of class that are impacting your ability to learn in the classroom. That's important things for your instructor to know about. A time to learn how to improve. You don't always have to go to them when you're failing or when you're about to fail a class. You could be getting a, C or B grade and you want to do better and you want to learn how to improve. And then of course you can just go in during these office hours and just have an informal chat, get to know your instructor a little better, have them get to know you, especially if you're in kind of those larger lectures that Kip was talking about. It can feel kind of isolating and kind of like they don't know you as a person. So going into the office hours and having a conversation, asking about their research or, how you can be a better student in the class are all things that you can do.
There are going to be times when you're going to want to contact a professor, reach out to them about an issue or about wanting to have a meeting. This is an example of an email that you would send if, say, the instructor or professor's office hours don't really fit your schedule because you're in another class or you have to work or something like that. You could it's perfectly acceptable and encouraged to try to reach out to them and see if you can schedule something like an appointment specific to your needs in your time. So obviously this is an example. You can word it as per your style, but you're going to want to say, what class it is, because some of, if it's a class of 600 students and they may have another class at it, make sure you identify what class it is, when the class meets, and then let them know that you're not available during the scheduled office hours that week or the next week. But you do have some questions we'd like to meet, and you ask if we can schedule another time to meet. And then you can maybe suggest some possible times when it might be good for you. And then hopefully they will see that in a timely manner and get back to you and set something up. Sometimes they might just say, hey, just stay after class next time if you can. I can hang out in the classroom or something too. It can be as simple as that. But most of our faculty are pretty accommodating for things like this. But there may be times when they have things going on as well with meetings and faculty are on committees. So they may have to, you may have to negotiate a good time that works for both of you. So it might not happen right away, but don't give up on it. Make sure you keep trying because you are paying to go to school here and you do have the right to have access to your instructors. So, but be polite about it and try to be flexible as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about how you communicate with your instructors and why. This is an example of one such example that Kip was talking about, but you might want to be in touch if you're going to be late for class or if you're expecting to leave early for any reason or anything like that. The instructor's going to want to know that in advance and well in advance. And it's funny because I think so much of the US experience in the classroom can feel somewhat informal, especially in the discussion sessions, can feel like an informal setting. But the communication style is through email is a little more formal. So that's something that can be confusing to students, but just wanted to highlight
And that's a good point. If you're emailing an actual professor, I would encourage you to, like in this example, dear Professor Smith. And if they correct you and say you can call me by their first name or whatever, then you can go with that. But until you're prompted, I would say, they're a professor, they've earned that title. If you're emailing a TA or something, it's more appropriate to, use a first name, last name kind of thing. Or you can say TA Jones or whatever too, give them their title. But it's important to show the respect to the professors.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Good point, Kip. So some tips, and we'll follow up with some more tips later too, but the course description and the syllabus are really important if you haven't already figured that out. Oh, I'm looking in the chat here. So doctor, yep, if they want to be referred to as doctor, I would refer to however they refer to themselves in the syllabus, unless they've told you otherwise. They might say on the first day of class, hey, you can call me Jen, right? I'm someone who, you can call me Jen, don't have to call me Mrs. Walsh or anything like that. But some people are different about that. So yes, if they have a doctor title and that's how it's listed in the syllabus, I think that would be a good way to refer to somebody. But make sure you understand your instructor's expectations throughout the entire syllabus with regard to attendance and just expectations in the classroom. It's kind of the the first place you should check for anything regarding the class that you might have questions about or that you're interested in. You'll want to stay connected with your academic advisors too. Whether you're a graduate student or a undergraduate student, it's important to maintain connection with your academic advisor, to meet with them at least 1 or 2 times a semester. And I would say maybe for graduate students, that's a little more often than that. And what is the reason for this? The reason is academic advisors know a lot about helping you choose classes and how to think about career planning and academic planning for the time that you're here on campus. So they are really great resources and can connect you with other resources that can help you make the most of your time here at UW-Madison. So definitely stay connected with those folks. And if you don't know your major, if you're an undergraduate student, those are people that can help you kind of navigate that and help you kind of narrow down some choices and help you select that major. And then of course, keep up with your daily homework. Don't expect to be able to turn in anything late. I think, like I said, refer to the syllabus for the policy on turning in late work. Chances are it's not permitted unless you've got an extenuating circumstance. If there's ever a time that you do absolutely need to turn in something late, again, using that email for the professor or for the TA to say exactly, what's going on in your life that's making it hard for you to turn in your assignment on time for that particular project. But otherwise, yep, turn in everything on time and keep up with the daily homework and any studying that's required of class. Anything you'd add, Kip?
I think the last one is important, to keep up with the homework and turn in homework on time. It's okay if something does come up and you're late to ask permission in advance. Don't really ask permission after you're late. That's not really considered the appropriate way. But try to keep that to a minimum, because if you're constantly late, then there's some issues with your managing your time, which I think we'll talk about as well.
Great, thanks for adding that.
Academic integrity. This is an important thing. Everyone that is admitted to this university and invited to come here to be a student has the academic skills to be successful in the work that they're assigned. So there's no reason to take shortcuts or engage in any kind of academic dishonesty or cheating, things like that. That's, everyone, there's no excuse for it, basically. So one of the things we do see come up a lot with academic integrity is citations in research or papers, or writing, written work. So proper citations are very important. Now, there are different style manuals that will guide how you do citations. So use the appropriate style manual. There's different ones. There's APA, MLA. Usually that is in the syllabus. The instructor will say what style manual they expect you to use. But if not, this is a perfect example of a good question to ask. What style manual would you want us to use? So when in doubt, ask the instructor. And there's a lot of different things you can cite that students sometimes aren't even aware of. If you wrote a really good paper as a high school student or as an undergrad somewhere else, you're a grad student, and you wanted to use some of your previous paper, you can if you cite it properly. You can't just like plagiarize yourself though. So there's ways of doing that. And if in doubt, again, ask the instructor. You can even, cite conversations over the phone with someone if you do it properly. So, but proper citations are very important. It's important to give people that wrote other things the credit for their words and their thoughts. I always thought that citations were actually fun, because if you're writing a paper trying to prove a certain point, it's fun to find other writers who would agree with you so you can cite them. So that's kind of how I framed it in my mind when I was writing papers. Only collaborate with other students when it's allowed. There are definitely times when collaboration is encouraged. There will be group projects that you work on with other students, but there are going to be also times when the instructor expects you to work on your own. So don't be, collaborating or asking other students for, the answers and things like that. And they do, instructors do expect original work, like I said. So you can't turn in a paper you did one time before verbatim. You can cite parts of your original paper, but that is one that sometimes gets students in trouble because they don't really know that. And I was one of those people at one time that Fortunately, I asked a question about using a previous paper and I was told I couldn't. I would have gotten in trouble had I done that. So some examples of academic misconduct include plagiarism, obviously cheating, copywriting or copying homework, stealing an exam. We've had examples of that happening. We do have an academic misconduct process where allegations are taken seriously and run through the conduct system, and you really don't want to be involved in that process. Another thing you can do to help with this is if you see other students engaging in things that are questionable, it's okay to kind of confront them on that you really shouldn't be doing this, because they're only hurting themselves and it's not fair to the other students who aren't engaging in that kind of behavior. So treat that very seriously. This is a very important topic.
And because it's so important, I'm going to put the link in the chat in case folks want to visit that website on their own after this discussion here. That's kind of a site that'll give you all the details about academic misconduct and what's expected of you as a student here at UW-Madison. So now we're going to go into our tips for you. So we're going to give you some tips here to help you be better students. You know this. I think you know this. Manage your time well, right? But what does that really mean? Get enough sleep. Sleep is incredibly important if you're spending so much time studying and socializing and doing things that college students do so that you're not getting enough sleep. That's going to impact your work as a student. Eat enough meals. Find out the meal schedule that works for you and when you're able to get those meals. I know sometimes getting food on campus this semester has been challenging with the dining hours and things like that. So make sure that you're scheduling out when you're able to get food and eat the food. That's also very important. Of course, we want you to attend class. There's a reason we're back on campus and having classes in person. We find it valuable to have students in the classroom and learning the material in person. And again, if you're unable to attend class for any reason, you can use that email example as a way to contact your instructor to let them know why they can't or why you can't attend class. And then this is kind of a loose estimation here, but at least in United States culture, it's said that for every credit hour of class, you can expect to spend about 2 to 3 hours outside of the classroom doing things to prepare for class, whether that's reading or writing or studying. It really depends on the course. So if you're taking a 3-credit course, for example, you can expect every week to spend about 6 to 9 hours outside of class working on things for that class. So it's budgeting your time effectively. If you're knowing that you're taking 15 credits in a semester for an undergraduate student, multiplying that out to figure out how many hours you want to spend outside of class studying and getting ready for those classes, in addition to sleeping and eating and attending class and all of those things. It's really important to budget your time effectively. Anything you would add to that, Kip?
Yeah, I would say that also if you're studying, make sure you take breaks. Sometimes, you hear about students that they sit down for 4 hours with their face in a book or on the computer screen or writing, whatever. And I would say it might be better to take and really hit it hard for 45 minutes and maybe take a 10 or 15-minute break, go for a quick walk, get something to eat, maybe watch a couple of YouTube videos to let your brain kind of recharge a little bit, because I think sometimes if students have their, they study for too long a time period without a break, everything kind of turns to mush in their brain and they don't really retain things or really think it through. So, hit it for an hour, take a little break, it's okay to do that. And it'll keep you more energized as well, because studying, you're thinking hard many times and it can be very exhausting. So make sure you kind of take those breaks as needed.
Yeah, great point, Kip.
Okay, study tip number 2, get organized. Use a calendar system of some kind, and there are many out there, Google, iCal, Outlook, things like that, to make schedule of assignments, quizzes, and tests. I I've actually still know of some people that actually carry around what they call a day timer. It's a little book with a calendar in it, and they handwrite things and carry that with them at all times too, as a backup or something where they can take notes and things like that. But use some kind of a calendar system so you don't miss things or assignments, or sometimes there are meetings outside of class, so you may have a study group. Make sure you schedule those so you show up, so you can help support your fellow students in study groups and things like that. So use a calendar system. Use alerts on your phone to set reminders for due dates. That's an important one as well. And complete your daily homework on time. Go to class prepared, be organized. If you have a discussion session coming up, make sure you're prepared for that discussion. It's kind of too late to go into that discussion and then have the book open trying to get caught up and everyone else is already down the road engaged in the conversation. So, complete the preparation in advance and on time. And don't do all-nighters, like I said. If you try to stay up all night, it's exhausting. Your brain doesn't really retain things well, and it's not healthy. That's a legendary thing. I suppose every college student tries it at least once, but try to avoid that as much as you possibly can, doing those all-night cram sessions.
I think I've done that before. And
Oh
I
yeah,
think
we all
it
have.
works in the short term, but not in the long term.
Right, exactly.
All right, another study tip for you. Some best practices, and I know Kip and I have already been kind of sharing some of these with you intermittently, but screen fatigue is a real thing. So kind of like what Kip was saying, take some breaks if you're in front of a screen, reading slides or, doing homework or writing. Screen fatigue is a real thing. So taking breaks is helpful. You want to rest your eyes, even kind of looking away from your screen for a little bit, or getting those blue light glasses, I think can be useful if that's something if you're finding your eyes are drying out a lot when you're in front of a screen. A lot of the work that students do now is in front of a screen. So anything you can do to take care of yourself in terms of the screen fatigue is really useful. Getting outside is another way to kind of combat that screen fatigue, or just study fatigue, I should say. Getting outside, crisp, cool day like this, and just walking around the building if you're at a library, or going for a quick walk, or just sitting outside is good for you. The sunlight, the vitamin D, that's all helpful for your body. Know your resources and understand your resources. So this is one of them. We'll share more later. University Health Services provides counseling and, of course, physical health services if you are physically ill like I am today. You've got resources on campus that can help you with that. And of course, it's going to be a learning process, and you're not going to figure it out. You're not going to figure it out right away, I should say. I'm teaching some first-year students right now, undergraduate first-year students, and they're struggling. They're working through it. It's, we're several weeks in now, and they're still kind of trying to figure out their pattern and what works best in terms of study times and taking breaks and getting outside and sleeping and eating and all the things we've talked about today. So it is a process. Because it's different. It's a different pace and it's a different lifestyle being at a university, whether you're a graduate or undergraduate student. So be patient with yourself, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, as you're working through and learning what works and doesn't work for you.
This is something for graduate students maybe to be aware, but graduate student professional development opportunities are something that you should really take advantage of if you are a graduate student or thinking about being a graduate student as well. We actually have a whole unit in the graduate school that handles professional development, with the skill building programs. There's educational workshops on all kinds of different things in leadership, career development, how to manage projects and people, better communication skills. There's a lot of opportunities to learn more about diversity and inclusion, interpersonal effectiveness, all kinds of things. So if you're a graduate student, or if you become a graduate student, be aware of these things. And our website has a calendar of events. We have this thing on our website called Discover PD, which is a tool you can go into. You can access, some things across various competencies. You can kind of see where you are in a particular point in time. So that's a real good resource as well. And something else for graduate students, some graduate students are actually required to do this because of certain funding sources. But even if you're not required to, it is really good to develop an individual development plan. And then that'll help guide you through the program, because graduate school is a little different, and sometimes there's not as much hands-on guidance, where undergraduate work is very lockstep and there's certain things, but graduate students kind of sometimes are out there on their own doing research and things like that, or taking different kinds of classes of experience, or doing internships. So if you have an individual development plan, that'll help keep you on track. And it's there are people in your program, your graduate coordinator and your advisor can work to help you develop such a plan. That's really an important thing. And so just to close up on this slide, you can learn more at the website on the bottom of the screen. Like I said, we have a whole area of the graduate school and staff that do nothing but work with professional development opportunities for students. So take advantage of it.
Great. And this, as a reminder, this is being recorded. And I think, if I'm correct, Yuriko, that the slides will be available as well, because there's a lot of text on some of these slides, and the next one is no exception. So I want to make sure that you have access to these things and you don't have to fiercely write them down right now. So this is, as promised, some more resources that are open to all students. The Writing Center being one of them. That's if you're just wanting someone to look over some writings that you're doing, either in draft form or in complete form, you can certainly reach out to the Writing Center, and you get one-on-one support, often from students who are experienced in writing. GUTS is our tutoring services. Again, another tool, another way that you can get some help from fellow students who are more skilled maybe in some topics that you need some assistance in. And if you go to guts.wisc.edu, it'll tell you exactly what courses they provide tutors for. There's so many libraries on campus, and if you can't get to a library, you can go to the library website, which is also really useful. They have a little chat bot on that website that is very responsive with anything that you need help with. If you're looking for a particular book or need help citing something, or really anything academic, the library can help you with that as well. University Health Resources, like I mentioned earlier, is another resource for you for physical and mental well-being. Recreation and well-being, often called RecWell, is another place to go for your physical health needs. They have lots of classes and can help you navigate the gyms on campus. Computer and tech support is also important and something that you might need help with through your time here. ISS, of course, the folks that are putting on this session today, they are a great resource for you. And ESL, English as a second language, or language related things that you may be working through. And then, of course, at the top, we've got kind of our main resources here. So undergraduate academic advising support. You go to advising.wisc.edu and you can find a lot of advising services and advising help there. And then for graduate school support, grad.wisc.edu is another great place to go. So this is really just meant to be a list of resources for you to examine on your own time to find what you need to be the best student that you can be.
And I will just add that on the mental health part of it, don't be afraid to take advantage of that resource. It's actually a sign of strength to reach out to try to ask for help. And I can tell you, I talked to a colleague that works over there just the other day, and they are very busy because there are many students who are struggling because of, the COVID and the stress of the world right now. And when you're an international student, a long way from home, even students that are from only 2 hours away, native students get homesick. So they, being from another country can even kick that up a couple notches. So take advantage of the resources there that they have. And also I'll put a plug in for the English as a Second Language program, because they offer classes that are above and beyond like the bare minimum that might be required of international students. Classes on how to improve conversational English, and even classes on how to teach in an English speaking classroom. So there's really good resources there as well that I want to give a plug for some of their actual classes that they offer. So
Great. Thanks for highlighting a couple of those for us. Now we'll move